I quit. Yes, I quit graphic design. If you want to know why, stay tuned. It's coming up next. Hey guys, Angelina from Mint & Porter Design Co. here. In this video, I'm going to talk about why I decided to quit graphic design. For those of you who know me, you've known that I've been a graphic designer for quite some time, many years now, and I worked like in marketing departments, and I've really enjoyed my time as a graphic designer. And so a huge shout out to all my friends and clients and design community that has supported me along that adventure. So I was recently really inspired by a friend of mine who went from a computer science major at, I believe, PCCC, which is the local community college here in Colorado Springs, to, working alongside some of the best Hi. She wants to be in the video. And she went from going from a CS major to, working alongside some of the best designers here in the city. And that was in a pretty short time, just a couple of years, and that was all through coding. I'm basically just going to cut the chunk of branding out of my business and just be a web designer. So now you know what my plan is. One of the things that I wanted to do was be a master of one and not a jack of all trades. And I went to school for web design and graphic design, but I've not been able to utilize all of the things that I want to with web design. And, I have a clear passion for it. And I think that it's something that I need to kind of double down on and niche down. And so that's my plan for 2020 in my business, is to niche down and become a web designer solely and a front-end web developer. So so shout out to my friend who inspired me to take. I'm excited for her and inspired by her, and I think we need more women in tech. So if you're interested, just get on Code Academy, start learning to code, or maybe dive into UX and UI, user experience and user interface if you are a designer. It doesn't come easily to me to code, but I think if you set your mind to something, you can definitely do it. So that's what I'll be doing. For this year, I'm gonna take the time to brush up on some coding languages and some things I've already learned, but I just never really have the time to do what I want with that. And so I went to school and I learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which are kind of like your trifecta of what you need to know as a front-end web developer. So I have a really solid foundation in that, but that was a couple years ago, and tech is constantly changing. And then furthermore, I mainly work in WordPress. So I've lost a lot of my JavaScript skills, and I need to really relearn that, especially that being an object-oriented programming language, which, as I just stated, does not come easily to me, but I think with persistence, anybody can learn how to code. Definitely believe that. So that is one of the things that is making me be solely a web designer. So solely a web designer, and concentrate and be really good at what I do. And then another factor is the job outlook. And I know this is a few years old, but I looked at the 2018 US Bureau of Labor Statistics, and being a web developer is supposed to grow by 13% in the next 10 years. And I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but it does say it's above average of a job outlook. So I just wanted to set myself up for the future and, just go into a career that I can continue to develop. That was my Siri. Huge shout out to anyone that's let me develop their brand. I've been, I really can't tell you the pride in my heart swelling when I see a brand come to life. I am so proud, and I'm so proud for my business owners who are getting started, and they choose me, and I'm honored to create something for them. But I would just like to segue that into making their websites, and I partner with some amazing brand designers, so I'm still gonna be able to point them in the right direction to produce what they need. The other thing is that I'm really involved with AIGA here in Colorado Springs. That is the American Institute of Graphic Artists, if you're unfamiliar. So we're just a design community, and like I mentioned, I know a ton of amazing brand designers, but I don't know a ton of front-end web developers. I know a few, and I'm grateful to know those few. But I would really like to niche down and just be the front-end web developer or web designer, kind of in our sea of designers here in the Springs, and become well known for that. So that's another thing I think that might help to niche down. I know people that are just illustrators and just motion designers, and I think what they're doing is very smart. So yeah, I would like to be just a web designer. So there's that. Another thing is, I'm not doing this just for job outlook or salary, anything like that. Those things, do go hand in hand with why I picked this industry. However, I just really love web design. I've been working on WordPress for a number of years. I actually originally wanted to be a travel blogger, and that's how I got into web design, because I set up my own website. I was really inspired by the Blonde Abroad and her website at the time. It was beautiful. And then I started getting into video headers and parallax and UI and UX and the analytics and what makes a website tick, and I just got really excited about it. And I was like, it's funny how when you start something, you never know where that journey may lead you. So in the end, I went to some trips in Asia and whatnot, but I didn't become a travel blogger. And I think being a web designer and a graphic designer has served me very well. So I just want to continue on my passion of web design. I want to create some killer websites. I would like to do some really cool things with CSS, and also, not only websites, but then I would like to create email marketing templates and, banner ads or whatever, anything in the realm of web that could use code of some kind, front-end web development. I would love to produce for small business owners and just for personal projects. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So what am I doing in the coming months? I'm going to be doubling down on my knowledge of HTML and CSS. I definitely will be relearning JavaScript because I've all but forgotten that. So yeah, those are my trifecta languages that I need to know for front-end web dev. Of course, most of my work is in WordPress, so I'll continue to learn that. I did actually go to school for coding from scratch, those 3 languages I talked to you about. However, fun fact, I actually just learned how to do WordPress from YouTube, so shout out YouTube. Thank you guys for putting all your content out there. I hope to do the same. And with that, my channel is now going to be focused heavily on web design. So I do have a few graphic design tutorials up there. I'm still actually going to be going to some design events. I'm very excited. I'm going to be going to Creative South 2020 in Columbus, Georgia this year for the first time. So stay tuned on my channel for that. I'm going to be videoing my experiences there. I'm going to be learning my basics, and then some other things I want to learn are I'd like to learn kind of version control and GitHub. So I've been looking at that. I would like to revisit jQuery and really get a good grasp on that. I've learned Bootstrap and Foundation in the past, but again, I don't really use it anymore. I loved Bootstrap though, so I would really, really like to look at relearning that. Something that came after I learned how to do these things was CSS pre-processors like Sass and Lass, and I know that, or is it Less? I don't know. I'll have to look at that. I know that speeds up your CSS, and of course that's going to help being a front-end web dev, so that's something I'm going to look forward to learning. I have dabbled with Joomla and Drupal. However, everybody, kind of just goes for WordPress, so that's what I've stuck with, and I love my WordPress, but I would like to know other content management systems, so I'll look into learning Joomla and Drupal. One thing that I keep seeing grow is Magento. The other day, I was talking to a web developer, and I said, Magneto or something like that, and I was like, no, this is not X-Men. So Magento for e-commerce. I've already worked a little with WooCommerce, so I got that for WordPress. And then I like to learn a JS framework. I don't know what the most popular one is right now. I've heard Node and React and Ember, so I need to kind of look at the job market here in Colorado Springs and see what's needed. Or if you know of the popular ones you keep getting asked for if you're a web dev, please leave it in the comments below, and I'd love to hear what I should learn. So And then of course, like as a personal project, I just like to learn PHP. Side note, PHP originally stood for personal homepage. A web dev friend asked me that the other day. He was like, what does it stand for? And I was like, I don't know. So it's funny because most of the time we use index.html as our homepage. So fun facts, fun web dev facts. I would love to hear from you in the comments if you have recently niched down or had a similar situation with your business. Were you a graphic and web designer and decided to just do one or the other? Were you a graphic designer and decided to be an illustrator? I don't know. Did you work in a restaurant and decide to become a web dev? Did you have a complete 180? Have you flipped your business? Have you niched down? Have you decided to just become master one, and has that benefited you? So let me know. Type it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.